Have you ever wondered why you keep pushing away the very people who love you the most? Why stability makes you anxious and peace feels suffocating? Why every time something begins to feel safe, you start to sabotage it slowly, silently, unconsciously? Maybe you call it boredom. Maybe you say they were too nice, or it just didn't feel right. But if you dig deeper beneath the surface reasons, beneath the rehearsed justifications, what you find might terrify you. What if safety feels foreign because you were never truly safe to begin with? What if chaos, conflict, emotional roller coasters, what most people run from, is the only language your nervous system understands? What if the storm isn't outside of you, but within you? And worse, what if you're addicted to it? This isn't just a story of heartbreak or failed relationships. This is a story of identity, of home. Because for many, chaos is home. And anything else, no matter how kind, stable, nurturing, feels like exile. You say you want love. You say you want peace. But the moment it arrives, you recoil, you break it, you run. And not because you're evil. Not because you don't deserve it. But because something in you was wired long ago to equate love with unpredictability, attention with volatility, and safety with a trap. So here's the brutal question. Are you breaking what's good for you just because it feels unfamiliar? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Maybe this is not fate. Maybe this is a pattern. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to see it for what it is. If this touched something in you, stay. Because in this video, we'll dive into the dark, raw truth about why you keep choosing chaos and how to finally stop. Before we dive deeper into the real reason you keep choosing chaos over peace, take a moment to support this space. If this message is already resonating with you, go ahead and like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you're the first to know when I release the next video that might just shift your entire perspective. Your growth deserves a space that speaks to your soul. Let's keep going together. Let me tell you a story. Maybe it's someone you know. Maybe it's you. There's a woman, let's call her Emily. She's strong, intelligent, funny in that quiet, observant way. She's done therapy, reads the right books, meditates occasionally, and swears she's ready for something real. And she means it. Deep down, she's tired of hookups, of heartbreaks, of pretending she doesn't care. She has tired of being the cool girl who doesn't ask for too much, who smiles through disappointment, who leaves first so she doesn't get left. What Emily wants, what she says she wants, is stability. A partner who sees her. Someone is emotionally available, kind, grounded, safe. And then, she meets him. He's different. He listens when she talks. He texts back. He's present without being possessive. Gentle, but not weak. No drama, no games. The kind of man who doesn't raise his voice, doesn't ghost her, doesn't make her beg for clarity. In short, he's everything she's never had, but everything she says she's been looking for. And so, she panics. At first, it's subtle. She takes longer to reply. Starts imagining flaws. He's too nice, she says. There's no spark. Then comes the ghosting, the slow withdrawal, the eventual disappearance, explained later, if at all, with a vague excuse. It's not you. I'm just not ready. But here's the truth. Emily wasn't afraid he would hurt her. She was afraid he wouldn't. Because if he didn't hurt her, if he actually treated her well, then the problem might finally be her. Now flip the gender, change the name. David grew up in chaos. His dad walked out when he was 6. His mom did her best, but there were boyfriends some kind. Some cruel, and nights he spent listening to screaming through the walls, praying it would stop. They moved apartments like seasons. David learned early that nothing good lasted. That safety was temporary. That love had sharp edges. And now at 30-something, David tells himself he wants a woman who's real, no drama, emotionally mature. Someone to build a life with. Then he meets her. She's everything he asked for, and more, and his body revolts. Not in words, not in logic, but in quiet panic attacks, in distant behavior, in that familiar voice in his head whispering, "This can't be real. She's too good. Something's off. Don't trust it." And before long, she's gone. It's easy to judge from the outside. But here is the truth that most never say out loud. When you grow up in chaos, chaos becomes your comfort zone. It doesn't mean you like it. It means your body recognizes it. It's familiar. Predictable in its unpredictability. Safe because you know how to survive it. But peace, real peace, that feels dangerous. Why? Because peace demands presence, and presence invites intimacy. And intimacy, true intimacy, means being seen. Not the curated version of you, not the charming mask, not the self you've rehearsed for years, the real you. The messy, scared, wounded, shame-laced self you've kept hidden behind jokes and detachment and control. And if someone sees that and still stays, now you're exposed. Now you have something to lose. Now the stakes are real. That's why you self-sabotage. That's why you pick fights when things are calm. Why do you ghost people who treat you well? Why do you chase after the ones who hurt you and push away the ones who offer something solid? It's not because you're broken. It's because you're wired for chaos. And that wiring didn't start last month. It started years ago in rooms where no one heard you, in homes that never felt safe, in moments when love was conditional, inconsistent, or simply absent. So now, as an adult, your inner compass is skewed. You say you want the light, but your body only trusts the dark. You crave softness but only feel alive when it's storming. You meet someone calm, healthy, and kind, and yet you ghost them. You get the job you prayed for and suddenly feel the urge to quit. You reach a moment of peace and your anxiety screams, "This is boring. This is wrong. This is unsafe." But what if it's not? What if peace feels foreign simply because it's unfamiliar, not because it's bad? What if your body is confusing safe with dangerous and dangerous with home? Here's the hard truth. You're not addicted to drama. You're attached to what once kept you alive. There's a difference, but now you're not that child anymore. You're not trapped in that house. You're not surviving anymore. You're here. You're conscious. You're allowed to rewire. You're allowed to want peace and learn how to stay when it shows up. But the first step is admitting the pattern. The first step is asking the terrifying question, why? Why do we destroy peace when peace finally arrives? Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And that single sentence explains why so many of us are living the same pain on repeat, different names, different places, same emotional devastation. We keep circling back to the very thing that hurt us and wonder why we never seem to escape. But it's not fate. It's familiarity. Let's talk about the unconscious, not as some abstract Freudian idea, but as a living, breathing force inside you right now. The unconscious isn't just where your dreams live. It's where your patterns hide, where your forgotten memories sleep, where your shadow waits. Carl Jung defined the shadow as everything within us that we've repressed, rejected, or denied our anger, shame, fear, jealousy, trauma, pain. All the emotions we were told not to feel. All the truths we were too young to face. And the more we try to avoid them, the more power they gain. Here's the paradox. What you repress doesn't disappear. It directs your choices from the dark. It whispers through your relationships. It sabotages your peace. It's the reason you find yourself attracted to the emotionally unavailable. The reason you keep saying yes when you mean no. The reason you leave when things get too good. Because the shadow doesn't want good. It wants to be familiar. And here's where it gets even more painful. What's familiar to many of us is chaos. If you were raised in an environment of unpredictability, divorces, arguments, abandonment, emotional neglect, your nervous system adapted. It learned to read tension, to expect loss, to scan for danger. your body became fluent in stress. So now as an adult, you unconsciously seek out situations that mimic that energy. Not because you enjoy suffering, but because suffering is what your body recognizes as normal. This is what psychologists call repetition compulsion, a term coined by Sigmund Freud. Freud observed that people don't just repeat behaviors, they repeat wounds. We re-enter the same kinds of relationships, recreate the same kinds of trauma, not because we're masochists, but because we are trying desperately unconsciously to rewrite the ending. You weren't loved as a child? Maybe if you love this emotionally distant partner enough, they'll change. You were never heard? Maybe if you stay silent long enough, someone will finally ask how you're really doing. You were abandoned? Maybe if you're perfect now, they'll finally stay. We keep trying to fix the past with people in the present. But this never works, because the present isn't the past. And the people in front of you aren't your parents, your caretakers, your first heartbreaks. They are new, but your wounds won't let you see that, so you don't respond to them. You respond to your history. And this is where Jung and Freud meet, in the intersection of memory and identity. But then comes Nietzsche. And Nietzsche takes us one level deeper. He wrote, "You must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star." What does that mean? That within every wound, every shadow, every scar, you carry the potential for something extraordinary. But you can't escape the chaos. You must go through it. Not around, not above, through, because your pain is not an error. It is information. It is pointing somewhere. The problem is, most people never stop to listen. They just react. They run. They numb. They build entire lives out of avoidance. But the truth, whatever you refuse to face will continue to find you in louder, messier, more painful ways. So what's the way out? You don't fix the shadow. You integrate it. You look at your patterns and say, "This is not who I am. This is who I learned to be." You name the wounds: abandonment, neglect, betrayal, shame. You let yourself feel the things you were once too young or too scared to feel. And slowly, your unconscious becomes conscious. You start to recognize when chaos is knocking, and choose not to open the door. You begin to rewrite the story, not by pretending the pain never happened, but by refusing to let it define your future. Let's make this real. You meet someone kind. You feel yourself pulling away. Stop. Ask, is this person doing something wrong, or is my nervous system reacting to unfamiliar peace? You get triggered by silence in a relationship. Ask, is this silence a threat, or just something my past taught me to fear? You feel bored when there's no drama. Ask, is this boredom, or is it the discomfort of being safe for the first time? Because healing will often feel like nothing. No adrenaline, no fear, no thrill, just calm. And when you've lived in chaos, calm can feel terrifying. Like emptiness, like death. But it's not death. It's the absence of survival mode. And that's where your real life begins. So no, this isn't about blaming yourself for your patterns. It's about recognizing them. Because the moment you see the loop, you're no longer inside it blindly. You're observing it. And that awareness, that single flicker of light in the dark, is the beginning of freedom. As Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you can't become until you stop running from what you've been. Let's be clear. Chaos is not the enemy. Life is full of it. Uncertainty, mess, change, pain, chaos in many ways is part of the human condition. Nietzsche didn't say, you must avoid chaos. He said, you must have chaos within you to give birth to a dancing star. Meaning, chaos has power. It's raw energy. It's a transformation waiting to happen. But here's the catch: unconscious attachment to chaos is a different story. That's not transformation. That's repetition. That's living out the same wound over and over and calling it life. This is what Jung meant when he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. If you never shine a light on your trauma, if you never look at the patterns, the triggers, the stories you've inherited, you will continue to live them like a sleepwalker. You'll think the world is punishing you, that people always leave, that love always hurts, that you're cursed. But in truth, you're just reenacting your earliest blueprint for love, and that blueprint is probably broken. Let's pause here. Imagine the child version of you. Not the polished adult you've built with therapy, coffee, and sarcasm. The real, raw, early you. The one who waited for mom to come home. And she didn't. The one who tried to make dad laugh so he'd stay another weekend. And he didn't. The one who learned to be invisible because being noticed often led to being hurt. That version of you is still alive, your inner child. And no matter how many degrees you earn, partners you date, or cities you move to, if that child still believes that love equals abandonment, that attention comes only after performance, or that softness is dangerous, you will sabotage anything that doesn't match that story. You will unconsciously recreate what is familiar, not what is healthy. So here's the truth you may not want to hear. It's not the world that keeps hurting you. It's the part of you that keeps choosing what you never received. Because the wounded inner child doesn't want something new. It wants to win the old game. It wants to finally earn the love it never got. It wants to finally fix the people who once broke it. It wants to finally feel safe in the same place where it once felt terror. But the past is over, and it cannot be rewritten. What you can do is stop handing your present to it. And this is where the real awakening begins. When you realize that the people who trigger you the most aren't always toxic. Sometimes they're just calm, and your nervous system doesn't know what to do with that. When you realize that safety doesn't feel boring, it feels unfamiliar, because you've never known it without a cost. When you realize that you don't have to chase people to prove you worthy of being chosen. Because here's the truth. If you only feel love when it's hard, when it hurts, when it's out of reach, you're not loving. You're performing. You're surviving. And you're doing it all on autopilot. That's why this process isn't about finding better people. It's about becoming a better home for yourself. A home where calm isn't suspicious. Where consistency isn't rejected. Where love doesn't have to come wrapped in drama to feel real. It's about reparenting the parts of you that never learned what peace actually feels like. Because when you start giving that child inside of you a new experience, when you say, I know chaos feels familiar, but we're choosing something different now, something begins to shift. You start noticing when you're about to sabotage. You start catching yourself just before you ghost. You start staying just a little longer, in the presence of something real. And that's what transformation looks like. Not fireworks, not instant healing, just presence. Just showing up for your own discomfort and saying, I see you, but I'm not going back to that cycle. Nietzsche called this the path of the Bermenste, one who faces the abyss, not with fear, but with the intention to create meaning from it. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming a whole self by integrating the shadow. Freud called it healing through insight, making the unconscious conscious. They all said the same thing. You cannot heal what you continue to avoid, and you will never break free from your patterns until you understand they were never really you. They were defense mechanisms, trauma responses, survival strategies from another life, but now it's time to live. So here's the question I leave you with. What would your life look like if you stopped calling chaos home? What would it feel like to stop earning love and simply receive it? The answer won't come overnight, but the first step is awareness, and the next step is choosing differently. You were not born for chaos, you were just born in it. And that distinction could change your life if you're ready to let it. Because for far too long, you've mistaken your survival story for your identity. You've believed that being guarded, reactive, distant, or emotionally unavailable was just who you are. But it's not. That's who you became to survive an environment that made peace feel unsafe. That version of you, the one who breaks what is stable, who ghosts what is good, who distrusts what is gentle, deserves compassion, not shame. They were doing their best with what they had, but now you have more. You have awareness. And with awareness comes responsibility, the responsibility to choose again. You can choose to stop running. Stop confusing love with tension. And this is where the real awakening begins. When you realize that the people who trigger you the most aren't always toxic. Sometimes they're just calm. And your nervous system doesn't know what to do with that. When you realize that safety doesn't feel boring, it feels unfamiliar. Because you've never known it without a cost. When you realize that you don't have to chase people to prove you worthy of being chosen. Because here's the truth. If you only feel love when it's hard, when it hurts, when it's out of reach, you're not loving. You're performing. You're surviving. And you're doing it all on autopilot. That's why this process isn't about finding better people. It's about becoming a better home for yourself. A home where calm isn't suspicious. Where consistency isn't rejected. Where love doesn't have to come wrapped in drama to feel real. It's about reparenting the parts of you that never learned what peace actually feels like. Because when you start giving that child inside of you a new experience, when you say, I know chaos feels familiar, but we're choosing something different now, something begins to shift. You start noticing when you're about to sabotage. You start catching yourself just before you ghost. You start staying just a little longer, in the presence of something real. And that's what transformation looks like. Not fireworks. Not instant healing. Just presence. Just showing up for your own discomfort and saying, I see you, but I'm not going back to that cycle. Nietzsche called this the path of the Bermenste, one who faces the abyss, not with fear, but with the intention to create meaning from it. Jung called it individuation, the process of becoming a whole self by integrating the shadow. Freud called it healing through insight, making the unconscious conscious. They all said the same thing. You cannot heal what you continue to avoid. And you will never break free from your patterns until you understand they were never really you. They were defense mechanisms, trauma responses, survival strategies from another life. But now it's time to live. So here's the question I leave you with. What would your life look like if you stopped calling chaos home? What would it feel like to stop earning love and simply receive it? The answer won't come overnight, but the first step is awareness. And the next step is choosing differently. Stop interpreting peace as a threat. Stop calling pain passion just because it feels intense. You can begin to ask yourself, gently but honestly, is this who I truly am, or is this who I needed to be to feel safe? That's the work. Not to erase your past, but to release its grip on your present. And it begins in silence, not numbing silence, not avoidance, but conscious stillness, the kind that allows your inner child to speak, the kind that helps you hear the part of you that's been ignored, silenced, or dismissed for years. That stillness might scare you. That's okay. Because healing often feels like danger when all you've ever known is survival. Peace will feel boring. Therapy will feel slow. Healthy love might feel awkward. You'll want to run, but if you stay, something shifts. You'll start to notice the urge to sabotage and not follow it. You'll recognize when you're being pulled back into chaos and pause. You'll feel discomfort in the quiet and breathe through it instead of escaping. That's what healing looks like. Not perfection, not clarity, not constant joy, but choosing differently, gently, repeatedly. So what does that look like in practice? It might mean finally sitting down with a therapist and saying, I think I'm afraid of love. It might mean journaling through the shame you've never spoken aloud. It might mean ending the cycle of dating people who treat you like an afterthought. It might mean allowing yourself to be loved, even when it feels unfamiliar, especially then. It might mean embracing solitude, not as punishment, but as reconnection. It might mean going on a walk without your phone, crying without apologizing, resting without feeling guilty. It might mean replacing your usual self-improvement list with something softer, something that nurtures instead of fixes. And yes, it might mean facing moments where you feel completely lost. But in those moments, remember this. Feeling lost is not the same as being lost. Sometimes it is a sign that you've finally left the map that was drawn by someone else, and you're beginning to chart your own. You were not born for chaos, you were just born in it. That sentence matters because it reclaims your power. It says, you don't have to stay in survival mode just because it is all you've ever known. It says, your nervous system is not your destiny. It says, your story can change when you stop mistaking trauma for truth. And the truth is this: you deserve a life where love is not a battlefield, where calm is not the enemy, where you are not constantly at war with yourself. You deserve a home within you that doesn't collapse every time someone gets too close. You deserve softness that doesn't feel like danger. You deserve to build safety, not in others first, but in your own presence. So if you're still here, listening, reading, through this moment, let this be your permission to choose again, to rewrite the ending, to put down the chaos, not because you hate it, but because it's no longer who you are. You're not broken, you're becoming. And becoming takes time. It takes patience. It takes small, invisible choices again and again. So be gentle with yourself, but be bold in your commitment. Because your peace is not a luxury, it's your birthright, and your healing starts now. If this message stirred something within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another moment of awakening. And more importantly, share your voice. Drop a comment below and tell me, what insight hit you the hardest? What part of this journey felt the most real for you? Your story matters. Your presence matters. And together, we're building a space for real inner transformation. Let's keep going, not just deeper, but freer.